Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished guests, thank you so much for your patience, and welcome to the 2021 Global Security Forum. My name is Molly Saltskog, and I am a research fellow with the Soufan Center, and we are proud to host this forum. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce the first Fireside Chat of this year's Global Security Forum. The Fireside Chat is titled Resilience Building and Securing Development in Africa. The conversation is promised to be a fascinating one and timely, and will focus on building resilience and promoting socio-economic development in Africa amidst challenges of conflict, terrorism, and the COVID-19 pandemic. In this hybrid session, world-renowned journalist Mr. Steve Clemons, editor-at-large at The Hill, will interview His Excellency Paul Kagame, the President of the Republic of Rwanda. In 2019, President Kagame was elected chairperson of the East African Community and has been leading the institutional reform of the African Union since 2016. President Kagame is currently chairperson of the AU Development Agency New Partnership for Africa's Development, as well as African Union leader for domestic health financing. Beginning in 1990, as commander of the forces of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, he led the struggle to liberate Rwanda. The RPF halted the genocide against the Tutsis in 1994, which claimed over 1 million victims. The hallmarks of President Kagame's administration are peace and reconciliation, women's empowerment, promotion of investment and entrepreneurship, and access to information technology, a cause he has also championed as co-chair of the Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency and Mr. Steve Clemons.
Thank you, Molly. Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. It's great to see you again, and many of your colleagues and partners in Qatar. I would say to all of the friends that we just saw on that big checkerboard that was on, many of our friends, Kevin Barron of Defense One and others were there, and I think they're very envious that many of us are here actually in Doha. Isn't it great to travel again and to be here in person? And congratulations so much to Ali Soufan and the Global Security Forum. President Kagame, I see you, and it's great to see you again as well. We've got a very full room here. We've got a lot of folks online. And I think our challenge today is to get an understanding of the way the world looks from your perspective. There are a lot of people in America, there are a lot of people in Europe, there are a lot of places in other parts of the world who think they know what your perspective should be. But I'd like to kind of start out and understand what Paul Kagame's dashboard looks like. You know, what are the serious priorities as you look at them and see at them from your perspective? What kept you up late at last night, Mr. President?
Thank you, Steve. I'm happy to join you today for this conversation. First, let me thank the government of Qatar and the Soufan Center for the invitation. Let me respond to your question in terms of I've selected both health and security. These are challenges that no country can address on its own, whether in Africa, the Middle East, or anywhere. That's why I chose to answer your question using these two. Insecurity is caused by shortfalls in governance. Sometimes insecurity takes especially dangerous forms such as terrorism or even genocide, as was the case in Rwanda. It crosses borders and affects neighbors and entire regions. Despite many chances to learn lessons from past failures, the global toolbox for dealing with these threats has hardly evolved. For example, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a peacekeeping mission has operated for 20 years with the meager results. While we saw what happened in Afghanistan with the 20-year commitment from the international community and so on and so forth. The efforts in the Sahel region to contain armed groups have also not yet managed to transform the security landscape. The point is not to cast blame, but at a minimum, we can say that something is very wrong in terms of how cross-border security threats are dealt with. It is not from lack of engagement or lack of money. I would say that no amount of external funding or troop commitment can create sustainable peace without putting governance at the center of it all. Because of our country's history, Rwanda is committed to contributing to peace-building operations and making a difference where we can. We have done so multilaterally through the United Nations or the African Union, such as in the Central African Republic or in Sudan and South Sudan. In fact, Rwanda has been among the top 5 UN troop contributing countries for several years now. Lately, we have responded to a bilateral appeal from the government of Mozambique to combat the radical insurgency in Cabo Delgado. External forces can create the safety and the political space for new forms of consensus-based leadership within a society to gain the upper hand, but it can't be forced or imposed. Let me conclude with a word about vaccine inequity. Clearly, the record has been mixed. The delayed rollout of vaccines in Africa and other developing countries has hampered global recovery and probably allowed new COVID variants to emerge. That is why it is so visible, because it is bad news for everyone. But vaccine inequality is just one form of inequality in the world. It is a reflection of the wider economic and social imbalances that have been there for a long time. That needs to be dealt with, because as we see over and over, global health and security are closely intertwined. I think the real question facing us is whether we are ready to learn that lesson and work together in new and better ways and demand better results. Steve, thank you again, and I'm looking forward to taking questions from you and from the audience.
Thank you very much, President Kagame. I want to get to the issue of health security, but later in our discussion, I know that you have commented a lot about the importance of Rwanda, in particular, having an independent biopharmaceutical industry capacity. You've moved forward proactively to build that industry, and I would love to talk to you about that. But you mentioned the Congo, you mentioned Central African Republic, you talked about Mozambique and the request from the government there to you and to the government of Rwanda to send forces. My understanding is you sent 1,000 men and women in to fight the insurgency inside Mozambique. But you also gave a speech the other day and said there's an expiration date, that had to end, that you weren't interested in occupying and deploying forces over a long period of time. And you seem to be saying that that was a different model than the deployment models of other countries in these situations. What did you mean?
Well, what I meant is simple. First, Rwanda has deployed in many parts of the world under the UN, under the AU, and again, bilaterally. But we have found that, for example, in the case of Mozambique, where we deployed bilaterally, working with the government and actually having the government of Mozambique invite us and many others, like they invited the SADC countries, that is the southern region, and neighbors of Mozambique to come and help. So Rwanda went there on the grounds that this was bilateral and an invitation from a friendly country that wanted such a help urgently. So we did respond. In fact, we deployed more than 1,000 troops. We have close to 2,000 in actual fact, but troops, military troops, and the police as well. And what I want you to understand here, for example, to begin with, this was done quickly. We put soldiers and police on the ground, and the problem has been addressed to a great extent, and good progress has been made. And it is Rwanda, the Rwanda government working with Mozambique. The two of us found resources to deploy to support these operations. We didn't get any financing from outside. So what this means is that even just bilaterally between two countries committed to dealing with the problem in Africa, that can be done faster, more effectively, as we have seen already. While other models, by now, if we had, for example, to wait until plans are put in place, mobilization is done, then, using the usual format that is used, we probably could still be waiting by now and not sure when we get started. Now, having answered that part of the question, the other part is, of course, between Rwanda and Mozambique and what we have achieved. At the same time, we are looking at the root cause of the problem and therefore what needs to be fixed, and mainly it's going to be fixed by the government of Mozambique, for example. And that will be in response to the governance issues, to the security matters that arose from that, and so on and so forth, by also capacitating the actual government institutions, including maybe training and accompanying the forces of Mozambique to eventually deal with their own problems on their own without having to always need support from outside. And all this, therefore, is what added to me saying that, well, first of all, Rwanda or any other country that would be helping or another regional force should not be on the ground forever. They should be working with the country to deal with the problem for as long as that support is necessary, but leading to the country being able to stand on its own. This is the real thing we are talking about.
Well, of course, one of the major themes we're going to be discussing at this forum is Afghanistan and the blind spots when it came to the efforts to change the DNA of a culture, to change the way Afghanistan was working to try to give people a different way and set of a horizon and a plan very differently. And of course, we know that the end of that was very messy. I guess my question to you, which is also a part of this forum, is that when it comes to this nexus between people's grievances and their concerns and the attraction of extremist ideology that can go into violence in some cases, that is part of the driver of the instability that we've seen around the world and also in your region. I guess my question to you is, how do you unplug that? How do you neutralize that in a way that you either seduce people back to see things differently and in a less, you bring them back into society, or do you have to take a military and a harder security approach? How do you deal with those separatists, those combustible, extremist ideologies that I know you've talked about in the past?
Here, there is no silver bullet. There isn't one effort that addresses all the problems and you get a solution. On one hand, it depends on the prevailing situation and the circumstances in any country, and how the leaders of that country, the people of that country, work together or have differences, and therefore what would be the reasons for those differences. On the other, there has to be a good amount of understanding that an external solution has its own limitations, very significant limitations. And this is where the mistake is mainly done, because the external actors come in with good intentions, maybe, and want to help, but at the same time, they end up imposing or acting on their own to find solutions to the problems of any given situation. So it always has to be these two sides. Do you really understand the circumstances, the situation, the real problem, and can it be understood from the perspective of the society, of the citizens of such countries? And therefore, when you want to support, then those who are supporting need to bear that in mind, and how do they come together with the people and really listening to the people, or having studied what the people want or what their problems are, and then putting them in the lead, therefore, of the whole process to the solution you are looking for. So the biggest mistake is always moving into a place. It doesn't matter what size of the force or how much power you have or how much money you throw at the problem. You don't get good results if you ignore these other very important factors on the ground.
I want to remind the audience that time can be very relative. In 1994 is when we saw the Rwandan genocide. Paul Kagame came in as president in the year 2000. 9/11 happened in 2001, and of course we saw the U.S. And allies move in against Afghanistan. So for some, the Afghanistan war and occupation, well, I won't call it an occupation, but the presence in Afghanistan was a very long time. It felt like a major burden. But when you think back to what Rwanda has done since 1994, it seems like yesterday. It seems just it was a very, very short time ago in which you've achieved so much. Anyone that's been to Kigali has to be amazed. 10 years ago, you and I spoke in Istanbul about smart cities, bigger cities. You had a vision and a plan. And I'm interested now that you're entering your third decade as president of your country. Is there a reset in your vision? Is there a new vision, or is it still continuing the one you came into two decades plus ago?
Look, we have rebuilt a country. People have come together, narrowed their differences. We have made investments in our people, whether we talk about education, skills, technology, health, and many others, and also being able to create an environment that attracts more investments from outside. And on that basis, we have seen how the country has grown up to this point. Therefore, what we are trying to do now, we had the Vision 2020, which you ran for 20 years, starting 2000. We made these investments. We brought in the energy in the region for regional integration, and so on and so forth. We didn't just talk about or deal with issues domestic. We also dealt with other matters, regional and continental, and also the partnerships between Africa and the rest of the world. So we've learned lessons ourselves. We try to really learn a lot of lessons. We consolidated the gains we made over the years and understood why we made such a progress. And then we continue to deal with the remaining problems. It is still work in progress. There are lots of problems and challenges to deal with. So we have now put in place another vision that spans 30 years and broken it into two parts, 15-15. And it's about where have we moved? Initially, a poor country, low-income country, aspiring to be a middle-income country. We look at what progress we have made over these years. And then we want to move even further and be an upper middle-income country in those 30 years, if not a developed country after that.
Right.
So that's really what is preoccupying us now, is consolidation of the gains and things that have worked and try to do more and better on those, and then deal with the challenges that remain or new ones that come up, but at least we've been able to create the foundation, and it's a very firm foundation with our people, with the understanding of where we are coming from and what we have to do to be where we have targeted to be. So I think that is in the 30 years, when indeed you look at the change that there has been in close to 30 years now since the genocide, I think 30 years looks very small. So each Rwandan plays their part, and we want to continue on the same path.
Well, let me ask you a question, President Kagame, that's a little delicate. In 1995, I had the privilege of interviewing Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, and many have compared you to be a Lee Kuan Yew type leader. And I asked then Senior Minister Lee when he would relax, when would he feel that the model that he had launched and put into place was secure enough that many of the tight controls, the security, the illiberal dimensions of the Singapore story could be relaxed. And he said that he would relax and people would relax when it became obvious that the political opposition wasn't trying to tear things down, but were also trying to build up Singapore. That there were too many combustible issues that remained beneath the surface. And he said that if you let those up, they would eat away. And I'd be interested, because you've been criticized, as you know, on human rights issues, on liberalism, on treatment of journalists and intellectuals that have spoken out. How do you get the balance right? What are the equities between balancing an increasing society where liberalism becomes an important part of the picture, right next to strong and robust economic development? What's the model? And I would ask you the same question. When will you relax some of these issues?
Well, let me start by saying I welcome the criticisms made, some of them unfair, others may be fair. but that's life. But I always wonder if we hadn't made progress, or if we had not survived at all, what would be the criticism today? So I think that was settled. We can be blamed, we can be criticized for making good progress and maybe not relaxing. That is a simple matter to resolve. It is much easier to resolve than if we had done nothing or failed or done entirely wrong thing altogether. That is, for me, the most important thing. Mm-hmm. The second part is being relaxed, or I think I get a feeling that the country is actually relaxing. Over 30 years, it's moving towards that as almost at the same pace with the progress that is being made on the ground. And therefore, it's more of these factors on the ground, and actually the people themselves, they give feedback. You see it, you read it, you don't, unless you're just careless or you don't see things for what they are. But I don't see how people would fail to understand the interactions that have been taking place and still do, and therefore the outcomes of that, and be able to tell that things need to change this way or the other. It's not just going to be dependent upon me as a person to say, when do I tweak this or tweak that? It's really something that is more or less holistic. As I said earlier, the approach is looking at all dimensions of the problem of our society, and therefore evolving realistically to a next phase or another phase, if you will. So I think we are moving, and I don't want, again, to single out just one thing about the individual, secondly about the opposition, it's the whole picture. I'm talking about the whole picture that brings into play what needs to play out in a society, in any society, to the benefit and to the good health of that society. It's not just one single thing here or one single thing there determining the process or even the outcome. It's rather a holistic picture that we look at.
You know, a lot of the world saw the movie Hotel Rwanda, and they saw the story there of what was portrayed as an act of heroism and human generosity during the atrociousness of the genocide. And Paul Rusesabagina has been arrested and tried and convicted in Rwanda for terrorist activities, murder, etc. And a lot of the world doesn't understand why what happened. Did rule of law prevail in this case? It's being depicted as a battle between the two Pauls, Paul Kagame and Paul Rusesabagina. I'm interested in what you think, as we know the Hollywood story. From your perspective, what's the broader story? And is there any merit in the notion that his treatment and the process being picked up as he did on a flight that was directed not to Burundi but to Rwanda, is there any merit from your perspective in the concerns that rule of law did not hold well in this case?
Well, I started by sympathizing with those people who don't understand this story and are innocent and want to actually learn about that story. But I also know that there are many who don't even want to understand about the story, to understand anything, but want to say or determine so much about that story. That is the first point. Mm-hmm. And this story has two parts, if you will, and it tells you what happens in this world that we don't see for what it is, but it happens anyway. Two parts of the story. One is the Hollywood story. And the Hollywood story, and there are facts, these things I'm talking about. There is everything you would want to rely on as facts. This film was actually supposed to be a fictional film. Now, how this person turned into a celebrity today and becomes the actual hero of this story and history of Rwanda, I won't take much time on that. It has only, I leave it to people to do their homework and find out. Now, there is another part of the story which I think builds on the first one, because, again, the outside world, the Hollywood world and others, having created this celebrity, the celebrity used this status, whether on his own or by being manipulated or whatever, and used by others. And now, for some reasons, associated, created, in fact, led, became part of these rebel activities, armed activities in the region targeting Rwanda. First, these groups were they kept changing names and splitting, but he was constant. He was supporting one group or the other, or at one point became a leader of one of these groups at one point or another. And he used to travel throughout the region, this Great Lakes region. He would be in DRC, he would be in Zambia, he would be, different parts of this region. Now, and he was residing in Belgium and the US. He has Belgian citizenship and is a resident of United States of America. So he got involved in this. And the armed groups he supported and was leading and became part of actively in terms of the activities thereof. They kept invading our country from mainly Burundi and in some other times operating from DRC. And by the way, here he gives his own, he gives evidence that he was actually part of it. He's on record. He does not even deny that because he can't, given the record to which he himself confirmed. Now, on this one, then another part, how we got him here. There are those people who support him, who complain a lot about him. They have failed to find any illegal way or aspect of what happened in getting him here. So that's not a problem, really. The problem we want to concentrate on is his activities with the armed groups in the region that has many victims in Rwanda. And in fact, together with him, there are close to 20 associates of his who are appearing co-accused with him in the court of law here in Rwanda. And we are tried together, and they gave evidence against one another, and almost all of them against him, 20, close to 20 of them. Now, the issue here becomes from outside, from the celebrity status that was created for him, the same people that created that celebrity status have to work toward having him freed and, in fact, absolved of any responsibility, irrespective of the victims of his actions or the co-accused who actually stood, in this case, with him. For him, they just... Now, this is where the interesting part comes in, because now it becomes the case of where the powerful, in whatever sense you put that, will just determine and say, no, this man, first of all, we are the one who made him a celebrity. Whatever he did, that's none of our business. He must be freed because he's a resident of the United States or a citizen of Belgium. And in fact, we had been sharing information with the two countries. The judicial system of Belgium and even of the United States were privy to these activities. We shared with them everything for almost a decade. So they can't even say they don't know. But it's like they are just saying, no, switch off everything, forget about this, we want this man to be released. And we are saying, okay, these organizations or these countries are powerful, but I think we need to take care of our own people's security as well, and we'll do that legally and very firmly, and they can keep talking about the Hollywood stories, but where it involves our lives are as precious to us as lives are precious to Belgium or United States or any other who might be interested. So it was an open case. It was tried in the court of law. It was public. The evidence was shared publicly. There is no doubt about the amount of evidence, the quality of the process, and so on. But so we are having this issue to deal with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your willingness to talk to us candidly about your perspective about this. But we don't have, President Kagame, we don't have a lot of time, but I want to ask you about two other big issues, I think, is recently in the United States with some people I think you would call good friends of yours from sort of the Clinton Global Initiative world, that crowd. There was a discussion about Africa broadly, and there seemed to be a perspective that I found really surprising and from my own perspective, even a bit demeaning about Africa, that Africa was the platform of the next great game between China and the United States. And I had raised the question, I said, what about countries like Rwanda, which are showing a self-determination, a very different model, that it's a very different part of an equation of development than one that's just dependent upon whether it's the United States developing or China, or maybe Europe. I'd like to know from your perspective what this community that was talking that way should hear from you.
Well, I don't know if they would be interested in hearing from me or haven't heard from me for a long time, but I think the thinking goes on for a long time. But I have to say here that first, maybe Africa and Africans ourselves don't do ourselves justice by really acting differently, acting for ourselves, and acting properly. So we don't do much of that, and that's why we always find ourselves in that position where people have to keep arguing for us and sympathizing with us and, looking for what they can do for us, not even with us, no, it's for us. The second is whether it is China or United States or anybody, I really don't think it should be the primary responsibility of these big powers to manage Africa. No, but they can support Africa. They can do partnership with Africa over serious problems that affect Africa, but also affect other parts of the world. But this whole thinking, in fact, is where we come from in terms of saying, no, we can't be like this. And I'm saying Rwanda, and there are other African countries that I think are beginning or think like that, to think like that. So we need to do better for ourselves and then be, but of course this should never, again, excuse anything wrong that might be done by African countries, one or the other, including Rwanda. Because we have discovered also there is not a single country in the world that is immune to all this. I think we find wrongs and rights in every country in the world. We have our own share of the problem, but to begin with, Rwanda needs to be managed by Rwandans. Africa needs to be managed by Africans. And we have to strive to do the best job of that and move forward. But China, America, United States of America, Europe or others, we can be strong partners, but I think we need to always resist being managed and our affairs being managed by them. Even if sometimes they use excuses of wrong things happening in one country or another, still we can assist that country to get things right, but not to manage the affairs of any country. And also Africa being made to choose between either Russia or America or China or whoever, I think it is wrong. And we must be the first ones to realize that it is wrong to be used like that, and therefore pull back a little bit and address our own problems and just partner with anyone who might be willing for that partnership.
Well, let me slip in a small question and then one big question that I think we'll end on. But the small question is, along those lines, I know in response to COVID, in response to looking at that development, my understanding is that you have really pushed forward on domestic biomedical development and production, a park. So I'd love to hear. I'd just be fascinated. I didn't know about it. I don't think a lot of us have heard about it. And the dimensions of health that play into the security question. As we're talking about security here, security and the aperture for what that means has become broader. And I think health security is part of this. So I'd love to hear from that. And then secondly, we have the Prime Minister of Qatar sitting in the front row here, listening to this. And I'd be interested in how your country and Qatar are looking at security, economic development, and really having a bigger impact beyond your own borders. What are you proud of with Qatar? What would you like to tell the Prime Minister you could do more together?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy with the friendship and the partnership we have with the state of Qatar, and we think we can do big things together and grow together, and we definitely enjoy that. And like, for example, when we intervened in different parts, whether it is Central African Republic or Mozambique, or there will be other cases coming up here and there. So on the basis of the two things, security and health, there is a lot that we can do and maybe are doing, and not only for ourselves, but also I think it can serve others as well, building on that model of partnership, but also what comes with it in terms of effectively addressing such problems. And that's why friends are there and partnerships are created. Now, even on the side of health, for example, we have been working with these advanced pharmaceutical companies or biotechnology companies like BioNTech. We have already made good progress in terms of looking at how we can manufacture vaccines and other pharmaceutical products within Rwanda, especially using the new technology of mRNA that has been used for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, or the technology that is being used by Moderna and maybe other companies coming up. So we are going to start producing vaccines here in Rwanda with the support of BioNTech, with the support of the European Union. And it is to answer the other question of inequality, where Africans really, none is making or manufacturing vaccines or these high-end biotechnology products. And therefore, that's why we find ourselves far behind the queue when it comes to vaccinations, with the consequences that we have already seen. So that is one way. So we have to do some of these things in our continent. There is no reason we can't do that. So the partnership, therefore, between us and Qatar, as you said, one of the best things that can come out is these partnerships that are effective and doing things in Africa with the Africans, and Qatar has a lot to offer and bring on board. We have on the ground, the Africans have a lot to bring to the partnership as well. So I think the sky is the limit. There are many things that can be done here. It depends on how people direct their efforts. And for us, we want to be productive. We want to build around stability and peace that can be found within our countries and others as well. So I think that may answer your question.
Well, President Kagame, we will have to leave it there. Unfortunately, this hour went by so quickly. I hope you'll give me another hour someday, because there's so many other dimensions to these big issues. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Kagame, President of Rwanda, thank you for anchoring today's forum.